Hello, everybody, and welcome to another of our Inside Coach Masterclass conversations. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by one of our Beyond Pulse partners, and specifically Mr. Paul Bright, who is the Technical Director for the Coaching Manual. So, Brighty, welcome. Thank you for sharing your time and insights with us today. If you don't mind, mate, for the purpose of the viewers that may not know or be familiar with what the Coaching Manual is, could you provide a little insight into both it and then you and your journey to get to where you are today?
Yep, no problem. First of all, thanks for having me on, Tom. I'm excited to be talking to you guys today and obviously getting into some of the meat of some of the coaching questions. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name's Paul Bright. I'm a USSFA licensed, UEFA A licensed coach, qualified teacher, and just an overall student of the game. I've been in the United States now for 3 years. Prior to that, I've worked in the professional game at a number of clubs in the UK, Everton, Manchester United, and I was the academy manager at FC United as well, and also at my hometown Oldham Athletic. So had some very, very fortunate experiences and worked alongside some fantastic coaches and players, and continued on my journey to be the best coach I can be and the best educator and teacher I can be, really. And again, aligned to that with the Coaching Manual, which is an online digital resource designed really to help improve coaches, players and parents within the game, providing everything from session planning tools, season planning capabilities, premium video content where you can see professional academies from the UK, and also professional coaches in the pro game through the partnership with the League Managers Association that we have, and really providing the tools for directors of coaching, coaches, players, parents to become better at the game, really.
Yeah, perfect. And thanks for the in-depth overview, mate. Obviously, it's kind of stolen my thunder a little bit in terms of explaining quite why we're so excited to have you on. But obviously, for the benefit of the viewers listening, obviously Paul's somebody that has got a wealth of experience that we're excited to be able to tap into and share with you all today. So I guess, Brighty, let's start from the beginning. So
yep.
When the Coaching Manual was, I guess, a figment of people's imaginations, what was the need within the youth soccer market that it was trying to fill?
Yeah, great question. I think, I wasn't one of the founders of the Coaching Manual. That credit has to go to Chris Barton and Terry Barton. Chris is a former pro player who was at Carlisle United, and I think when those guys attended the grassroots show in the UK, which used to run out of the Birmingham NEC, I think they recognised the need to provide an insight into quality coaching and teaching, and they were very fortunate at the time to have a strong relationship and partnership with Southampton Football Club, who went on to develop players like Oxlade-Chamberlain, Gareth Bale, James Ward-Prowse, so on and so forth. So the timing was fantastic. I think technology at that time, we've been around for over 8 years now as the Coaching Manual. I think at that point the timing was key, because I was still working full time in the professional game when I come across the Coaching Manual, and even for me, as an experienced coach, it was a bit of a revelation. It was refreshing. There was video content there. I could see other practitioners and what they were doing, which would either confirm to myself that I was on the right track, or it'd also motivate and give me inspiration. So I think the timing was very good in terms of technology was starting to creep into all levels of the game, not just the professional arm of the game, but also the need and the desire for continuous education. Now, I think there has been a huge shift towards coaches, even players and parents wanting to know more about the game and best practice, and that technology being readily available. I think the Coaching Manual were one of the first to provide an insight into a professional academy.
Yeah, and I share in exactly what you're saying, because obviously, like you, I was, I used it too to do exactly that. And I think from my perspective, you hit the nail on the head when you started to say that there's been a culture shift, I feel, in best practice now isn't behind closed doors. It isn't just kept as a secret. I think there's a willingness for people to recognize in the industry that the only way to move the needle forward is to continue to share ideas and resources and be humble enough and open enough to doing it. And you guys obviously do a wonderful job with providing that type of content and insight for, you know, for the membership. So I guess thank you for that, and may it continue. But I guess, Brighty, you know, you reference it as a tool for, you know, a singular coach. What about obviously the club partners that you work with, the DOCs that you work with, and how you think technology of this ilk could be used to support, you know, the broader technical staff and their ability to kind of raise quality of coaching behaviors and performances across a staff and not just on a micro level with an individual?
Yeah, again, great question. I think, you know, the product with the coaching manual offers something for everybody in terms of the individual coach who may be out there on their own, coaching the son or the daughter's team, but also with the professionalization, I would say, of youth soccer, not only in the United States, but I'm seeing it in the UK as well and across Europe. I think directors of coaching are playing an absolute pivotal role in that. A DOC role, as you're fully aware, is not just looking after the coaches. There's a lot of administration that goes with that. But ultimately, I think soccer people want to be judged by what happens on the field, right? Because we are football clubs, soccer clubs, and with the development of directors of coaching and clubs having a style of play that they want to be represented on the field. I think the coaching manual tools, we quickly developed those club management tools. So directors of coaching can now plan sessions on our platform. They can send sessions out to their coaching staff, to their players, to their parents. They can put it in digital folders. They can reference continuous education. So it might be a session with, you know, Mark Warburton or David Moyes, for example, just to drop a couple of names in, or a Southampton Academy coach, and ping it over to them and just say, have a look at this and see what your thoughts are. So what we're trying to do with the club management tools is provide directors of coaching with the resources where they can get that information out to their coaches, because ultimately, and I say this to a lot of large clubs and organisations globally, if you remove the badge, your club badge, how do we know who you are? And that has to be represented in not just your culture, which is a buzzword right now, but it's how you go about things and how you live every day in terms of how you operate as a club. But also, if I'm looking at such a Club X's model, I need to see it on the field. What do they do in possession? What do they do out of possession during transitional moments? Is it represented across all the age groups, or we can see a common thread? And if there is a common thread, then how do you communicate that? There's some clubs in the US, as you know, 100, 200 teams, which is fantastic. So again, how do you, as a director of coaching, communicate to 200 coaches or 100 coaches? I think technology, that's the biggest benefit for technology now. And with a platform like ours, with the coaching manual, directors of coaching can get some sort of consistency, I think is the word. It's also important for the coaching manual. We're not here to tell anybody what to do or how to do things. It's never that. This is a game of opinions. We're a platform to provide best practice, resources, ideas, and inspiration to give coaches and DOCs the tools to run with it. It's a creative game. We've got to allow for that creativity from coaches and directors of coaching as well, and hopefully provide them with the tools and the resources to do that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just to talk a little bit on where perhaps we felt there was a synergy between the two organizations was you referenced the limitations in a DOC and kind of one of those power clubs or, you know, large organizations that are, you know, 100 teams and potentially 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 players deep. The limitation that a DOC or a technical lead has to physically see and support and monitor and engage with, candidly, you know, all of those coaches on the grass. Where we felt, I guess, the kind of biggest synergy is that it provides, you guys provide another way for that informal learning to take place. It's not, you don't have to be there, You know, it doesn't have to be necessarily written observations, doesn't have to be a facilitation of formal coach education programming, but you can offer a resource to help make people better. And I think that's something that's really important to, you know, to both of our organizations, is the value in technology of having that broader outreach, and the ability for me and you to communicate and be engaged in a continual development process without necessarily needing to be in the same room, on the same field at the same time. And like you said, you know, how do you know what's happening when you're not there? Well, you don't, but all you can do is go towards the best possible, I guess, the best possible measures to ensure that what you hope is being delivered is being delivered. And the way to do that is to provide as much insight as you can, and tools for coaches just to go out onto the grass and say, here we go, it's there for you. So
I think it's that awareness piece. It's that awareness piece, Tom, as well. You know, it's you know, within the coaching line, you can even upload your own coaching video, so you can create your own video library. And I know the fantastic work that Beyond Pulse does with your analytics as well. The key one for me is that active participation time that you guys get. So you start to marry the two. You start to see what it looks like on the field and on the grass. You start to get some, you know, quantitative measures underneath it if you want to go down that route, and it paints that picture for you. And ultimately, it's all about making sure players are on the field, they're getting touches of the ball, what they're learning is related to the game, and that they're sweating and they come off and they've had fun and they want to come back the following week. That's for any level of the game. Are they working hard? Are they having fun? And are they learning something? You could say that's a first team in a Premier League club, but it doesn't differ. So
yeah, no, you're very true. So tell me this then, mate. What barriers and what obstacles have you found that you've had to overcome with the ever-growing prevalence of technology in the youth sports space? So you said it's, you know, you guys got in and, you know, you really were kind of market leaders in the shift towards, you know, the use of external resources and technology.
Yep.
But when you go to a club, what's the apprehension? What's the pushback? You know, is there any? And if there is, how do you overcome it?
Yeah, there's always going to be, you know, especially if they're not too familiar with the products and the work we do. I think the first thing, and you mentioned it earlier, is about that humility piece. That is absolute. Personally, that's probably the number one key trait for a coach, is humility, and recognizing where you are in the role and you've got. So as an organisation, we need to be the same. We're not here to tell anybody how to do anything. All we can do is give best practice. So that's sometimes the first barrier. Or here with a coaching manual, you know, with a slick website trying to tell us what to do. No, it's not that. We're trying to make your job or your life or your coaching path as easy as we can by providing you with resources and tools. So that, I think that's the first barrier, which we can get over pretty quickly. The second barrier is, I would say, the saturation in the market now. There's a lot, you know, I'd argue that the coaching manual has given birth to a lot of other offsprings of similar sort of platforms. However, what we've always tried to do is stay with organisations who, you know, Southampton, I think were voted European Academy of the Year not too long ago. And quality teachers, that's the key. Coaches, teachers, for me it's the same. Quality teachers who are there to teach the game. So I think, again, that reservation of, well, you know, what's the quality like? I think that stands up very quickly. And the third thing is that, I think I've already touched on it, that creative aspect of, well, you know, I've got my own curriculum and I've got my own periodized plan. Well, brilliant, because now you can populate it onto this platform and share it out. So I think those are the key barriers, and we try our best to break those down. You know, saturation in the market. People are, you know, technology is a big booming industry. Soccer, everyone wants to be attached to the game because of the glitz and glamour to it. So there's always going to be competitors, which is fine because it keeps us on our toes. And we're going to continue to stick to our mission statement, and that's very clear. We want to help improve the game. We want to provide those tools to improve coaches, players, and parents' knowledge around the game. If we can do that, and the game gets better as a result, and people come away thinking, you know what, it really helped me, really supported me. Then fantastic, we've done our job.
Yeah, no, and I think, look, I think when you hear you talk about it, it's very difficult to argue. But do you come across skepticism at all? Do you come across people saying, well, it wasn't here 10 years ago, so why do I need it now? Or, we were in a World Cup in, this year and we didn't have this. Or I coached a team or a university team to a title in 1998. Like, what about?
Yeah, I think there's a culture shift, Tom. Again, we've touched on it. I mean, the best response I've ever heard is when a university coach told me he had coaching boxed off. And I thought, wow, this guy's got coaching boxed. Yeah, he's got it boxed off. I've never met anybody who's got it boxed off, and I've just met the guy. So, I mean, that's great. That's fantastic if that's his opinion, and who am I to challenge that? But I think, again, there's been a culture shift. I think the danger, and this is a danger, that in the game, there can be coaches who all of a sudden are really technologically savvy. They'll pull a keynote presentation, all glitz, all glamour, moving parts, and it looks the part. That's great. That's fantastic. But ultimately, we all need to be judged by what we do on the grass. That is bottom line for me. I through my teaching background as well, and my qualifications and my roles I've held, I've had to teach myself how to put those sorts of presentations and slideshows together. And I'm pretty decent at it now. But to the point where people say, oh, well, no, great presentation, and I love that PowerPoint. I'm like, well, yeah, it's great, but it doesn't exist only on that screen. It has to exist on the grass. And I want to be judged as a coach on the grass. I'm not going to get it right every time. That's absolutely fine as well, because I'm still learning. I'll be learning this game. To my point, I don't think anyone's got it boxed off, just my opinion. But I'm of the mindset where I want to keep learning about this game. I want to keep getting better. If someone can have a conversation with me or send me a session plan, or what do you think about this, and it flicks a light switch in my head, then I'm like, brilliant. And that is irrelevant of qualifications. That's irrelevant of experience. Sometimes it comes back to why. It comes back to justify why you're doing this. How does it relate to your players? And how does it relate to the game? So that's the big question, why. I think if we can answer the why, I think we're good. So there has been a shift. There has been, there's old school values, what I really do value. And from a northern town in England, similar to yourself, Tom, they get hammered into you. So there's still some old school values that I really abide by, and that people may think of me as being old school as a result, but I'm not. I embrace with technology, obviously. Modern teaching methods and pedagogy and all that stuff. It's got to be at the forefront of what we're doing, because it's a game. It's about people. We're dealing with people. So I think the shift has been there across the whole coach education. You look at the FA in England, about how they've shifted. You look at the US Soccer Federation now with the new grassroots methodology and their shift. It's becoming very people-focused and people-centric, which it should be. So I think even coaching styles, the way that people even engage and absorb with information now, this is where technology is key. Short, sharp video content, quick hits, get your message across, and all of a sudden people are engaging and learning with that, players included. So.
And I think you touched upon it nicely as a segue into the next question that I want to ask. I think, again, one of the things I find, I guess, best from both an insight and educational perspective about the coaching manual clips are that it's not just here's an idea of a session and then here's an execution of a session. You have the layover between the coaches explaining what the objectives are and the age and stage of development that the kids are working with. Talk to me about why that's as integral to your program as it is in relation to obviously the broader audience that we could pitch things, because as you said, your background of times back home in professional programs, Joe Bloggs could come rock up, see a session with the 19s, want to go take it to the U8s, or vice versa, right? Yeah. So give me an explanation about, you know, why the why is so important in your video production and the content that you share.
Yeah, I think it's the justification of you know, the what is there. The what is the session design, the session layout. That can be found on Google. That can be found, you know, doing a search. I want a pressing session. Give me a pressing warm up. You'll get the what. You'll get the X's and O's, so to speak. For me, that's not enough, because we need to understand why this session is set up in a certain way, why the coach is interacting and using those interactions from the coach's toolbox. You know, is it a very command-led session? Are they allowing guided discovery? Are they setting challenges? All of that stuff. And why? Is it age appropriate? Is it ability appropriate? Is it actually that this group of players really respond well to this sort of coaching, and then underpinning that, and then how we're going to put it all together? So I think what stood the coaching manual in good stead and stood as the test of time, because 8 years in a technology business is like grandfather time. You know, we've been around for a long time when you've been around for 8 years in technology. So hopefully we're doing something right. But I think that premium video quality content, looking at, you know, Terry Moore, who was former assistant academy director at Southampton, one of my favourite coaches on the coaching manual. He's a teacher. He just, how he interacts with the players, I picked up so much just from those videos. I've only met Terry twice and had a brew with him, but just his mannerisms, you know, how he gets certain things across, his enthusiasm, you're like, it's contagious. And I think for coaches, even at all levels, you know, if you're a brand new coach and you get onto the coaching manual, it's like, wow. And you know what it's like early in your career, you imitate what you see and take it as best practice. Now, for more experienced coaches as well, picking up those little tidbits, those little nuances of coaching from the likes of Terry Moore. I mean, David Moyes, I know that our session with Moyes has been plugged quite heavily, but his session was unbelievable. Honestly, when I was there in person and listening to him and his process and how he set that up, that could be delivered to, especially the first part. You could do it at any age group, but his detail, his enthusiasm, his standards were absolutely vital. And then we've got more, you know, Premier League coaches, but academy specialists as well, coming with our new partnerships with the likes of Glasgow Rangers and continuing with the LMA. So it's showing teachers and then getting that insight into, well, why are we doing this? How are we going to make it all come to life, as opposed to just the X's and O's? And I think that's the key from you know, qualified and credible people in the game as well. If this is what these guys do for a living, day in, day out, then hopefully they're doing something right.
Right, absolutely. And I guess as a somewhat of a closing thought, mate, the coach that might still be skeptical, the coach that might still perhaps not want to accept either A, the importance of continued education, you know, B, the importance of broadening the horizon of resources that you use to look to better yourself. C, as we said, the willingness to engage with technology, perhaps as, you know, as a necessary tool for how the modern age player, the youth player specifically, technology is all around them, right? Our generation, we didn't have it. You know, the generation before us, they didn't have it, but now they do. And you know, we look at the ability to connect with them as something that's supremely important, even if it pushes our, you know, our levels of comfort. So what would a closing message be to somebody who's like, yeah, okay, I like it, but still going to kind of stay in my own way? What would you say to those guys?
I'd say that's not a problem, Tom. Honestly, if you want to continue down the path that you're doing and you're doing things right, then that's fantastic. However, what I would say is, if you're a coach or a teacher, then you're in a privileged position. You're a role model. We want our players to continually learn, do more outside of the game. If you're not willing to also be that continuous learner, then what message and what tone are you setting to your own players? And time's an issue, time's a factor. cost can be sometimes a factor, but I think we're very, very well positioned on that. And I think, to your point around technology isn't going away. It's only going to get stronger and stronger. And I think it will benefit the game as long as it stays true to the game. With Beyond Pulse and the active participation and the other metrics, stays true to the game because it means that we want to see how much players are playing, as well as the other metrics you've got. With us, it's about providing the resources that will make the game better by effective coaching. And to the point where there's coaches on the coaching manual who now send the video sessions out to players before practice. So the players are getting there. We did a trial of this with a club in Manchester, and the players, this U12, U13 team will come in and to the point where they were setting the session up. So talk about owning the session and owning their own learning. The most powerful part of, level you can get to where the kids fully understand what the requirements are, what they're going to be doing and why they're going to be doing it before they even get to training, maximize his playing time. And on top of that, we've just launched our new player app with Top Techers. Again, just to take that training away from the field, use technology as an antidote to really getting kids. It sounds a bit of an oxymoron of, we're going to use technology to get kids out practicing again. But that's where, every kid has got pretty much access to a tablet or a smartphone or knows how to use them at least. So again, with the Top Techers product that we've released, it's trying to get kids back out practicing that technique so that when they come to a training session, the coach can focus on the key aspects of the game, knowing that the players are practicing the techniques away from the game. Because that's what happened. That's what happened when we were kids, and the modern day pros, they were doing that. Street football's dying. Nothing you can do about it. It's a cultural thing. It's a society thing. So we've got to probably use technology to reignite some of this stuff. So if people don't want to look at it and are dismissive of it, that's absolutely fine as well. Like I said, we're comfortable in what we can provide to support people. May not be for everybody. We hope it is. We feel it is for everybody, but ultimately it's a game of decisions. It's a game of opinions. Sorry, not decisions. It is a game of decisions, but a game of opinions. And if your opinion is the coaching manual isn't for me, that's also fine. But I think most people recognise the importance of, being open-minded, being a continuous learner. Having all the formal qualifications in the world are fantastic, but if you only do a course once every 2 years, what are you doing in between those gaps to get better? And that's the question I would pose to anybody.
I think that it's a slight kind of change in direction, but there was a quote that I heard recently where discussing the Erikson's concept of 10,000 hours deliberate practice. So it's not 10,000 hours. Repeat the same year 10 times, or if you repeat the same training just over and over and over, like it's not going to bridge the gap. So you're exactly right. Like how coaches continue to broaden the level of insight that they're receiving and the resources they're using to get better. Because as you said, if you can, it's not like you can pick up the phone. Most people aren't in a privileged position to pick up the phone and speak to people who have developed professional footballers for their career, or have worked with thousands of kids who have gone on to level X or Y. So I have to say credit to you guys for the insight that you share. So last thing then, Brighty, if people are listening saying, okay, you know what, I want this to be me and my team, my club, how can they find you? How can they learn even more about the coaching manual? Where can we go to get hold of a little bit more information?
Yeah, no problem. Shameless plug then. So the coachingmanual.com is the coaching manual's website. We've got toptechers.club, which is our player app. And also, if anyone wants to email me directly, I've got no problem in that as well. paulb@thecoachingmanual.com. Always happy to respond to people. So all of the information in how you can get involved is on our website. And really look forward to speaking to people moving forwards, and always happy to have a conversation around soccer.
And you guys and you personally, you're quite prominent on Twitter sharing resources. So how can they get hold of you there as well?
Yeah, so our social media handles are all there. So at Coaching Manual on Twitter, at the Coaching Manual on Instagram, and the same on Facebook, the Coaching Manual, and same with Top Techers app. So All of our content, well, not all of our content, but all of our contact details and some insights into what we provide, provided across our social media channels. And again, you can get in touch with us through the social media channels. And there's also a help button or a request button on our website as well, what can put you through to a live chat. So different ways to get in touch with us and see what we're doing as well. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, Brighty, perfect, mate. Thank you ever so much for your time. And as I said, I hope that the conversation just, at least spikes interest. And again, together it's great to be able to share a message of, constant development and the importance of it in the game, both for us as coaches, but obviously the kids that we work with. So genuinely, mate, thanks for all you guys do, and obviously look forward to what comes next.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. And again, great work with the Beyond Pulse guys and what you guys are doing as well. So obviously we're partners, but also avid fans of what you're doing as well. So great stuff.
Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. We'll be in touch.
No worries. Yeah.
Bye, bud.
Thanks, Tom. See you later.